Hi, everybody. Josiah Gilliam here with Pump, and we've got a fun community partner highlight today. I'm here with Monteze Freeland from City Theater. Thanks for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, City Theater is a gem, but for those that aren't familiar, walk us through it. Tell us about City Theater and the theater company.
City Theater is Pittsburgh's hub and home for contemporary new work, primarily plays. So we've been around. We're actually celebrating our 50th anniversary this year,
Wow.
which is a milestone here in Pittsburgh and in the city. It began in the mid 70s, as did a few other arts organizations around the city, including the Pittsburgh Public Theater as well. And from then, it really has just been a home for bold new work. And I was actually at the archives today looking at photos from some of the original productions when it was the Park Players. They would do shows in the parks and take things to schools and to different centers. And so it always had a mission to be embedded inside of the community, which is what I love the most about City Theater, is that we invite the community to our space, but we aren't afraid to get out there and spread the word and spread the art as well. So since its inception, it really has been a place of making sure that theater feels accessible to all. And in the 70s and 80s, it really made a name for itself, although it moved around the city a few times. But why not? You know, you have to go into the community to bring the work to the community. So for many years, it was associated with the University of Pittsburgh, and so it was housed on their campus. And then it eventually moved to our home on the South Side, where we have a fun, lively neighborhood that seems to match our mission and who we are. And since being on the South Side, we really have solidified being, I think, one of the coolest theater companies in the city, and doing work that really highlights the world we live in today and the world we want to live in tomorrow as well. So we're not afraid to hold up that mirror to some of the hard issues and some of even the fluff of life right now, and not afraid to make fun of it too, through farce and through comedy as well.
Yeah, so important. So you guys are in the South Side. What brought you to Pittsburgh and to City Theater?
Well, okay, I'll try to keep that brief as possible. But
hey, take your time.
Well, I came to Pittsburgh from Baltimore, and I came for college. I went to Point Park University.
Right downtown?
Right downtown, but initially I went to Juniata College, which is in Huntington, Pennsylvania. And I realized that a boy from Baltimore going to middle of central Pennsylvania was a big shock and different. So my two best friends from home were actually at Point Park. My three best friends from home were at Point Park. And they said, come on up here. We're having a lot of fun. It's a very inviting space. People are nice. We're right in the city, so you'll be back inside of a city. And I auditioned and got in and came to Pittsburgh, and the rest is history, I guess you could say. And I've been here for about 20 years this year, so that's really exciting. And at Point Park, I met some lifelong friends. I met lifelong mentors, people who I have had the opportunity of being taught by, but also eventually in my career hiring them as actors in plays that I've directed. And so it's been a full circle moment in many ways. But I credit Point Park with polishing me in a sense. But I was heavily trained in Baltimore. And that's where I learned how to be an artist. I learned the responsibility of art, and that it is actually always activism to be an artist.
Say more about that. So when did you know or discover that this is the path you wanted to pursue? And then tell us more about this idea of art as activism that you've experienced and learned about.
Sure. So I was 5 years old when I first stepped on stage, and it was a shock to everyone because I was pretty nonverbal for the most part, but I knew how to read well. I enjoyed reading, and so they plucked me from the ensemble of this play in school and gave me the lead. And I guess I was bitten by the bug then. It was all this adulation and so forth. But I realized it was something that I never planned to do. It scared the hell out of me. And I said, well, I did it. I survived, and people seemed to like it. So it just lit a fire inside of me, and I realized then that my voice had the power to evoke emotion, because I saw my family have emotions about me speaking in front of people that I'd never seen them have before. And so I said, well, there must be something powerful about this thing.
Mm.
And from there, I joined an amazing group called the Arena Players Youth Theater in Baltimore, Maryland, which is the oldest continuously running African-American community theater in the country.
How wonderful.
Yes, and it's located right in Baltimore, across the street from the projects and the Wendy's. And it is right in the heart of the city, right off of Martin Luther King Boulevard
Wow.
on McCullough Street. And from there, we were taught by Black artists about how impactful we can be through our art
Mhm.
and with our art. And from the age of, I think, about 9 years old to 18, I studied there. I was taught by Troy Burton, Lori Goodman, Yvette Shipley Perkins, Andrew Dove, and Robert Chu, run by Catherine Orange and also Robert Russell. And I will speak their names always because they poured so much into me. And the name Robert Chu could mean something to some people, but his face, I'm sure, will. He was on The Wire. He played Prop Joe
Yeah.
on The Wire, and he was my biggest mentor in life, and miss him dearly,
Mm.
but I carry his lessons with me. But inside of that space is where they embolden us to learn the craft. They say you can have all the talent you want, but if you don't have that container of the craft, then it doesn't matter.
Mm.
And the craft is how you use that talent. And so we would do plays that you wouldn't expect a troupe of young Black kids to do. The first show I saw there was Cats with an all-Black cast.
Wow.
And we would do Into the Woods, and of course, The Wiz. You got to do that. You know, it's a rite of passage in this industry. And Alice in Wonderland, and so many other unconventional titles moving forward. And then they allowed us to create our own work.
Mm.
And that's where we really found our voice as artists and as teenagers, angsty teens who had a lot to say about the world, who had a lot to say about ourselves. And we found that by doing that, we were actually becoming activists.
Mm.
We were speaking to the moment. We were holding up a mirror, as I said earlier, that City Theater does. But I learned how to do that as a teenager and to do it with confidence and to not have anyone say you can't or you don't have a space for it. And if I found myself being pushed out of spaces, I knew how to create my own space.
Mm.
They taught me that. So I came from a rich background of strength and confidence and of artistic prowess.
Yeah. What was your origin story with City Theater specifically? Do you remember when you first became aware of the theater company, and then how did you get involved?
Yeah. I saw a play when I was in college that one of my professors, Sheila McKenna, was in, called Murderers. It was a 3-person play. 3 people doing extended monologues about the murder that occurred at a senior citizen home, and we find out who did it. I can't remember who did it though. It was intriguing.
Yeah.
It was in the smaller theater at City Theater, and I just remember being just like, oh, this is fun. Here we are in this room. Everyone's laughing and giggling about this very serious topic.
Yeah.
But the actors brought it to life. And a few years later, I had auditioned for the Young Playwrights Festival, which is our flagship education program at City Theater.
Mm.
And I got in, but I quit my day job working at a hotel that I won't name.
Fair enough.
And because I don't want them to sue me when I write my book. But I quit that job to do this Young Playwrights Festival, to get a $600 stipend to do this. And on the last day of the festival, the education director, Kristen Link, said, "What's next?" And I was like, "I don't know." And
Right.
she said, "Well, we have an opening in our box office if you need a day job." And I said, "That's clutch," because I worked in the box office in college. So it felt like a cool transition. And so I did that for 3 years, a box office attendant and a parking lot attendant, and left City Theater, came back as a teaching artist for the Young Playwrights Festival, left again, came back as an actor and a director. And before the pandemic, my good friend Reg Douglas departed City Theater. And I got a call asking if I would be interested in coming and being a part of the team. And initially I said no, because it didn't feel like it was any art in what they were offering me. So they were able to craft a position of associate producer for me, which allowed me to be an artist, but also really learn how the regional theater works on the admin side. And from there, a year later, after that happened, I was asked to be one of the co-artistic directors with Mark Masterson and Claire Drobot. So the three of us led the company with James McNeil through the pandemic, pulling us up, still keeping the art on the stage, or at that time in the digital sphere.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of the work that we did. But
Yeah.
I literally went from the box office to the boardroom, is what I say.
It's a wonderful trajectory. So, and if I remember correctly, during COVID, did you guys did like an outdoor play at Hazelwood Green? Does that sound familiar?
Sure. Oh, yes, very familiar.
Yeah.
Very familiar.
I was like, that's City Theater, right?
Yeah, we did a drive-in.
A drive-in
I
play.
keep wanting to say drive-through. That's food. I'm
right.
hungry. But
No, yeah, I remember being
drive-in.
stationary and then like with the radio. Yeah.
And it was with it wasn't just plays. It was like we offered the first performance opportunity for so many people in the city after
Right.
being shut down in March. So we had the symphony,
That's right.
we had the ballet, we had singers, of course. We even had comedians come and do a night of stand-up. And there wasn't applause, so they would honk their horns when they would laugh or when there was applause,
Yeah.
which was so odd. But we were just happy to provide a platform and a space.
Mhm.
And we also produced a couple of our shows as well on that outdoor stage. And so it was the innovation of City Theater that really kept us afloat. The innovation has been a part of the company and ingrained in the company since the beginning.
Sure. Yeah, I'm still to this day very grateful for that experience. You know, it was an odd era.
Yes, it was.
But a chance to see some live performances, to get out of the house, so to speak, but still feel safe, and that was really, really wonderful. Okay, so you mentioned your trajectory within the theater company. Tell us what it's like to direct plays, and then I want to get to King James here, as well. But you have performed in many plays. You've been poured into by a rich legacy of folks. What's it like taking that step, and what is it like actually being a director?
Being a director, that's a great question. To me, I guess, the most cliche thing is that you're the captain of a ship. And maybe it's my obsession with the Titanic that maybe keeps me in line because I never want the ship to sink.
Okay, sure.
But sometimes you can't help it, Sometimes you're going to hit a little iceberg along the way.
Sometimes they do sink, yeah.
Sometimes they do, even the biggest and best. But I think that it's about, we think about a captain, they have an sort of bird's eye view of what's going on, the trajectory, what's coming down the way. You pick the people that you need on the team. You have the folks in the appropriate positions. And you also are just keeping a view on the full picture. But as a director, you're responsible for the vision of the piece. So before I sit down with a lighting designer, a sound designer, a scenic designer, a costume designer, a media designer, I have to have an idea of what I want. And I still have to leave space for their creativity as well. And I have to be clear about what the vision is so that they can jump on board, or they can say, actually, no, that might be a little odd. We're veering from the path, or it might not be what you think it's going to be, or we can't execute that as fast as the mind thinks, Monteze. So we have to find a new way. But I've been so blessed to work with so many generous and collaborative artists that typically people just go, all right, let's jump on board. Let's make this happen.
Yeah.
And years ago, a director I worked with named Marcy Woodruff, RIP, she said, as a director, you have to learn the language of every artist that you're working with quickly. Because I can communicate with you in one way and can turn and communicate that same way with someone else, and it won't be effective. And so working with artists and actors who I love actors. I know actors can sometimes get a little bad rap, but I love actors, and it really is learning how to communicate with them so that they can be as vulnerable and as safe as possible to give a consistent performance on the stage every night. And a performance that is of high quality, that yes, has high stakes, but also that they should feel something back from as well. And if everyone's doing their job, because I believe that you can't really know the power of your own gift. So if I'm really living in my gift and I'm putting it into the room, it's for someone else to receive. So if someone else is doing that as well, then I receive it. So we're all sharing. We're all lifting each other up as we go along. But, it's personality management as well. and making sure I don't become a diva.
Right.
And get, I try to be the same person on the first day of rehearsal as I am on the toughest day of technical rehearsal.
Mm.
And that's important to me because I think that that is the legacy in which was poured into me by not only my mentors, but my parents as well, who I'm a representation of them. And I love them so much, so I'm not going to be out in the world acting up
Yeah.
because I represent who they were and who they are and what they poured into me.
Very good. So King James,
Yes.
where did this come from? And tell us the story of the play and your involvement with it.
Absolutely. So King James, written by Rajiv Joseph. Claire and I last year were reading many, many plays. I'm trying to figure out what the 50th season would look like. And you never know who brought what to what table at that point. But I read it and I said, oh, I really enjoy the camaraderie that's in the script and that could be portrayed on stage. And Claire actually knew the artistic director of the Cleveland Playhouse in Cleveland, Michael Barakiva, and they were looking at this play as well. It was already sort of slated to be in their season. And so we said, well, why don't we do a co-production? Because co-productions really are what's saving the American theater at the moment. And it's two companies. Oh, you're about to ask me what's a co-production?
And I don't need to. You're already getting into it.
Well,
Yeah.
a co-production is when many companies come together to produce the same show. And so what you're doing is you're sharing costs, and you're also allowing so many benefits of it. You're allowing the artists to go to new hubs and perform, and the designers to work in new spaces as well. And so this particular co-production is between the Cleveland Playhouse and City Theater. And we began the production in Cleveland. We started rehearsals in February, and it had a month-long run in March. And then we brought it here to City Theater. Same set, same cast, same technical elements, different space,
Right.
and different circumstances.
Right.
Because the play takes place in Cleveland. So
Yeah.
we have August Wilson here in Pittsburgh, which people can go and hear a play and hear their ancestors' names and hear streets that they grew up on, and
Right.
and there's a familiarity. Cleveland doesn't always have that in the American canon of theater. So this is it's going to be a classic. I know it will be. And we have the opportunity to present it in Cleveland for the first time for a Cleveland audience. I've never had an experience like that in my entire career of seeing people latch on to a work, of seeing people see themselves and feel themselves in a way in which maybe they didn't know that was accessible to them. And there were folks coming in their Cavs gear. The ushers, you can see the Cavs shirt underneath their white usher shirt. I'm like, let it out, let that Superman out,
Yeah.
And it was just a time that I won't forget, and I know the actors won't even won't forget either. And there's a moment where a cell phone rings, and everyone in the audience knew what happened, what that ding was about, and it blew my mind. But the story is about them, and it's for them. So it's been a journey, a beautiful journey, starting it in Cleveland and then bringing it to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. So, how do you go about taking the same set into a different space?
Very meticulously, and it comes with a lot of planning. We have a wonderful production team at City Theater,
Known for that.
small but mighty.
Yeah, truly. Yeah.
It's like 6 people.
Wow. Yeah.
Put it all together. And then, of course, we have overhires. And then Cleveland has a fantastic production team as well. So building it in Cleveland, it had to build to tour. So, and it's not a small set. It's a pretty large set. There's a turntable involved. There are 2 actual spaces. It's realistic. So it's not necessarily abstracted in any way. We have a huge Jumbotron that's a part of the set to really pull us into that basketball arena feel. And the day we unloaded it here in Pittsburgh, a thunderstorm happened in the middle of the day, like we're in Florida or something. And so that halted some work for the day, but it didn't stop the process, So there are many people when you come to the theater and you see that work who you will never see, who don't get the opportunity to sit down with esteemed people like yourself and talk about their work. but they are really the backbone of the company. So shout out to all the production teams at City Theater, Cleveland, everywhere. Shout out to y'all.
Yeah.
You're great. You're wonderful.
Yeah.
But we picked it up, put it in some trucks, brought it on down the road.
So why should people come see this show, right? So you mentioned, it's about King James. I'm a basketball fan.
Yeah.
I'm a King James fan.
Yeah.
It's a brave take. It's only one of the best ever. Some debate about where he actually is. Fun fact, we share a birthday.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
All right. Same year or like same birthday?
No, he's a little bit older than me.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
But it's been wonderful watching his career still.
Yeah, still.
I was a big Kobe guy. 20 years seemed like that was wild, and it was.
Yeah.
And here he is out here still he's playing tonight, I believe, in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. And once again, he lives in the playoffs. That's his home.
That's really incredible.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, so much of his story and some of the highest of the highs take place in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
So now this play is in Pittsburgh. How are you how are you inviting people kind of into this story?
Sure. So this story, if you're not a basketball fan, that's cool. You can come to this play, still enjoy it, and still leave with emotions that maybe you didn't expect to feel.
Mm.
And that's what theater should do. So the play is as much about two guys who come together over season tickets to the Cavs. One is selling them, one wants to buy them, and the one who wants to buy them does not have someone to go with. So we see their friendship over the course of 12 years through 4 quarters, like a basketball game. And we get to see sort of who's winning and, who's up and who's not. When is it tied? When are the stakes at, level between the both of them? And we get to see over the course of this 12 years how these young men grow into men and see their dreams realized, see their dreams pulled from under them. And one element that we added to this production was seeing what was happening in the outside world at that time with the many social and racial justice movements that began between 2004 and 2016.
Sure.
You think about Obama's presidency, thinking about all of the things that were in pop culture at the time that happened so quickly that I think it's easy for us to forget. So we have Jasmine Golfin, who created the media for the work, and we were hell-bent on making sure that people did not forget what was occurring in the world during that time, because the playwright was pulling from that as he was writing these characters. So it was important to know exactly what was happening outside of those 4 walls to see how it was influencing the conversation between these 2 men. And it's just 2 guys, the whole play, 2 hours plus on stage, yapping it up and talking about sports, talking about women, talking about dreams, talking about their parents, talking about the people they want to be in the future. And it's exciting. Just hearing me say that, you might say, well, I don't know if that's exciting, but believe me, it is exciting. It's thrilling. There is some basketball in it, physical and verbal. But the whole play has that theme of sports and camaraderie and team. What does it mean to be a team and to work together?
Sure. I think, having some familiarity with the LeBron story and knowing from a Pittsburgh perspective how much sports can mean to a community, I think there's a lot to like, even for folks that might not be too familiar, because LeBron and his team and his crew of friends really embodied the hopes and dreams and aspirations of an entire city a couple different times.
Yes.
And to your point, high peaks, deep valleys, a comeback. There's a lot to play with. So I'm very excited for folks to have a chance to encounter those themes through this story. So going until May 11th?
Yes, they are. They're running until May 11th, running this game. The rematch is what we're calling it.
I like it.
Running the rematch until May 11th at City Theater in our main stage. They have about 7 or 8 performances a week. No easy feat, but they are making it happen. And one of the best parts about this co-production is that we were very serious about making sure that every artist who works on this piece either made Cleveland or Pittsburgh their home. And so we didn't look to New York and Chicago and LA to find the artists for this work.
Mm.
We wanted to make sure we were lifting up our hometown artists and heroes. And so this play is presented on stage by Michael Patrick Trim, who is a native of Pittsburgh, a good friend of mine. We've worked on stage together, but this is our first time working in a director-actor capacity. And then we have Robert Hunter from Cleveland, who is fantastic as well in the show, and who took a little bit of a hiatus to become a film actor and to start his own nonprofit to help African-American boys primarily in schools through art. And so he's returning to the stage in this play that means so much to him as a person from Cleveland who watched LeBron ascend, leave, come back, and really take Cleveland to the heights.
Yeah, ascend again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no doubt. That's wonderful. Okay, a couple final questions here, Monteze.
All right.
I want to circle back to what you were this idea of art as activism.
Yes.
Could you just share a little bit more about that idea and what you think the role of art and artists, are? I almost want to say like at this time, but it may not be different than over time. To your point about a lot of the light that was happening during the context of this play. But just share a little bit more about that, and then we'll wrap up here soon.
Sure. I feel as though these are my feelings. I'm not representing the company, but these are my feelings, that we do have a deep responsibility as artists to showcase the truth. Many people are going to put many stories in front of you that's going to be from their point of view, that's going to intentionally skew what you're thinking and how you think and how you move forward. But art has no bounds when it comes to telling the truth. And I think that most playwrights, directors, actors, we're always in search of truth. We're always in search of the most humane aspect of the piece. And so when you have that as your sort of underground current running through your artistry, anything that's false or anything that feels like an agenda, you naturally are going to repel. And so it allows us in the room to go, well, we could make that decision, but are we influencing someone to feel or think something that's other than the truth? And if so, then it's usually not the right decision or the best decision, because whether people want the responsibility of it, being an artist, there is a responsibility to it because not everyone can do it. Some people are just born with the gift, and the gift is to give. And years ago, when I started teaching with D.S. Kinzel from Boom, and we had an arts activism class. Tuffy, he probably like, you said my whole government out there. but we had an arts activism class with BMLDI, and it was
a Black Male Leadership Development Initiative.
Absolutely, you knew it right off the bat.
we do a lot of alphabet soup in the in the nonprofit space. Yeah,
yes. And I remember we were doing those classes when Trayvon Martin was murdered, and so it's like, well, why am I in here talking about art with these young men when they are showing examples on television that their life is in peril and they're young, and this is their first real example of seeing it. And so we came up with the thought of hashtags or protest signs, and how to use your hashtag on your Instagram page, or at the time it was also Facebook. I know young people don't travel over there too much anymore, but to really say, well, if you're going to hashtag something, make sure it's worth it. Say something impactful and important. So I love the idea of instilling into young people this thought that anything that you do, you can bring truth to it, and no one can take that away from you. No one can stop me from being an artist. I wake up in the morning, I could write something down on a piece of paper, boom, it happened. What you gonna do about it? So I love that journey, but there is a responsibility. And if someone tells you that it's not, they're in it for the wrong reason.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for your time. Encourage people to see the play and check out City Theater's entire season of shows. 50-year anniversary.
50-year anniversary, and we have our big celebration, our bash celebrating the 50 years on May 17th at City Theater. Tickets are available now. Tickets available for King James. Come check us out before it closes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody.